I don't think you draft a guy like me to not give me, carries and touches, and I'm ready for the responsibility, and like I said, it's going to start with me, and in the run game, and I got to continue to get better.
This was a classic. Brew sent it over on text, and we inserted it into the show because it felt.
It's a good story.
It felt like a good quote, and then once I pulled the Brew and listened to the whole thing, it felt more reasonable.
Well,
I just wanted to put that out there, not to like tamp down.
No, listen, I think
it comes across more caustic as it.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
I'm not going to attack Jeanty. Maybe he shouldn't have said it. I don't think it's a huge deal. But to answer the question, are they misusing him? The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
If you draft a guy in the top 10, you need to feed him the ball. And I'm going to show you, Coach, his numbers on something that I think even you are going to have a hard time doing anything other than being like, he's doing everything he can. Can we show his numbers? All right, so look. He has 81 rushing yards on the season. 77 of those are after contact. So he has 4 yards before contact. The bottom line is not a misprint. This year he has 3 receiving yards, but he has 16 receiving yards after contact, which means he has been getting hit, catching swing passes in the backfield, been getting hit, and then moving upfield. Do you understand what I'm saying, KW?
No.
Okay. So he has, on the year, all of his production, essentially, he has more yards after contact than he has total yards.
Oh, okay.
Because he is getting contacted in the running game and on swing passes in the backfield. So if that is an argument that the Raiders are in trouble and I shouldn't have picked them to make the playoffs because the offensive line's not good, that's maybe is the case. But if it's an argument that he hasn't been doing everything he can and that the Raiders shouldn't be giving him more opportunities, of course they should. You spend a top 6 pick on a running back, you've got to use him.
It's not that complicated. And I hate to do this, I hate to say it, but it's just the truth, Coach. Ashton Jeanty is falling victim to the Nick Wright curse.
Oh, Jesus.
Was it 2 years ago? Bijan Robinson.
I was right about
that. Oh, my gosh. Now.
I was right about
But his
Bijan.
rookie year,
he was good.
He had some issues. He was good, but you thought he was going to take the league by storm like Earl Campbell.
Yeah.
Offensive player of the year, he's okay. Yeah. Now he's great. All right. Last year, of course.
This one is fair.
Caleb Williams. Taking the Bears to the promised land, baby. We're going to not only be the first 4,000-yard passer for the Bears, he's leading them to the Super Bowl.
That was a miss.
We know how that worked out. And now, Ashton Jeanty averaging 2.7 yards per carry. But that's the Raiders' fault. Pete Carroll doesn't know how to handle a running back. He only had Marshawn Lynch. He doesn't know what to do with a workhorse. And here's the other thing. Ashton Jeanty has 30 carries. You know how many carries Travis Etienne, the leading rusher in the league, has? 30! All right? How about Derrick Henry? You like to give him the ball. He's got 29. They don't want to use him in Baltimore? I mean, what are we talking about? Your boy Bijan's got 34 carries. 30 carries, 81 yards, 2.5 yards a carry.
I think he's just talking about the last game. The last game, he should have got the ball more. Geno was struggling. They couldn't protect him. He was productive when he got it.
Productive? Really? He had 43 yards.
On 11 attempts. You'll take 4
No,
I
won't. I want at least 4 yards
Well, maybe he's got to.
And I really want 4.5
That is 3.98 yards per carry is what he got.
I want at least 4 yards a carry. Coach knows what I'm talking about. It's a game of inches.
That's true.
Know what Ashton Jeanty should do? He should just.
Oh, my God.
Yes. When you're averaging 2 yards a carry.
When you draft a guy like me, a guy like you, with half a yard of reception, a guy like you. Pete Carroll's been coaching 19 years. You're
Coach.
21 years old. Okay, it's 2 years difference. You think he knows what he's doing? A guy like you. Remember Adrian Peterson? Adrian Peterson. We used to put 10 guys in the box.
And would you give him 11 carries?
Hold on a second. You could give him as many as you want. He found a hole.
Okay.
And then Barry Sanders. It didn't matter. That O-line got a ton of credit. But yeah, because I actually coached against Barry Sanders, and the dude was like water. He could find a crack. Okay, Ashton Jeanty. How you doing in pass blocking, Ashton Jeanty?
He's struggling.
His first week it was pretty good. But how's he doing?
This is a bad rap. It's a bad rap.
Oh, it's a bad
Coach, it's a bad rap.
Here's the thing. You got to play every play, and you got to play hard with the ball not in your hands. And you did pretty good in the first game, and you did really good in college, but you can't put your quarterback at risk.
Well,
okay. There's a lot to unpack here. They're both right and they're both wrong. There's a good conversation to have here. First off, let's just be very clear what Nick is saying, because I don't think he did a very good job of explaining it, and that's why Wilds got confused. Essentially, every time Ashton Jeanty is getting the ball, he is getting hit. So the Raiders, Nick's point is that the Raiders are not doing a good enough job of getting him the ball and putting him in a position to succeed. And now Mangini is really saying, well, hey, some of that is actually on Jeanty himself, that he needs to be able to find the holes. He needs to be able to avoid some of this contact. And I think both things are true. I think the Raiders have not done a good enough job to get him the ball in a way where he can now, get some yards before contact. But also, it's very clear that sometimes he just is expecting himself to be able to just run over people. I actually just put away my Raiders notes from the last couple of weeks, and I wrote a bunch of times like, this isn't college. Stop trying to just run through people. Like, it's just not going to be your reliable way through the NFL right now. And that is what Mangini is trying to emphasize. And like I said, I think there's truth to both cases. And also, when you do look at all the attempts that other people are getting, like, you realize, like, yeah, like that's how it ebbs and flows. Sometimes someone is getting the ball 20 times a game, and sometimes they're getting it 10, 11 times a game. And it all depends on the situation. And listen, when you have someone who is like a Derrick Henry, your IM oftentimes like, what are you doing? You better give him the ball more than 10 times or whatever the case is. But we don't always have all the information in terms of what the game plan is, the overall health of what it is. And it's not always the easiest thing to necessarily comment on. But this is where I understand how the full quote of Ashton Jeanty is not as bad. But at the same time, this is still something, even no matter what you're saying, when you utter a sentence that says, I don't think you draft a guy like me to not give me carries, it doesn't really matter what the official context is. It's just not a good sentence either way, It's just not something that you should say, no matter what leads up to it, no matter what the official question that was asked of you. You just don't speak like that in this moment of time. Because you are a rookie, you have played 2 football games, and you know what? You actually don't know what should be done in the NFL at this point. You're learning. It took Tom Brady like 10 plus years to learn what the heck the NFL was. That's his words himself. So you're not really in a position to comment on that. And I ripped Micah Parsons because he said, I think last summer, like, there's nothing else for me to learn in the NFL, or like, I've seen it all. And it's like, no, you haven't. Like, again, so you're learning the game of football faster, and you think you know everything now at a faster rate than Tom Brady, like at half the time. Like, wow, you must be a super genius then, man. Like, it's just, you gotta have some humility here. And especially when you're talking to the media, it should always be like, you know what? I'm just doing whatever my team asks me to do. Even if they ask you like the most leading question, do you think being drafted, I'm making this up now, first overall as a running back, that you should be getting a lot more carries? You don't say, yeah, I think if you're going to draft a guy like me first round, then, I would expect that you're going to give me, more carries. You just say, you know what, at the end of the day, it's not my decision. I see my view on this team is just to do whatever I need to do. Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, these guys are absolute, just veterans of the NFL, of football. These guys have forgotten more than I'll ever even be able to know. And I'm just here to hopefully do the best that I can, and just have faith that the coaches will put the ball in my hands and put me in a position to succeed. Like, just like super generic things like that. Those are the sound bites that you want. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. It really doesn't. So it's just, I don't know. So here's the thing also about Ashton Jeanty, because we're talking about yards after contact, and it's obviously clear that he needs to do a better job of actually trying to get away from the contact a little bit, find the holes, as Mangini is putting it, as well as the Raiders need to do a better job of getting him yards that are not just, to not have him, have that contact from the jump. And he really is pretty much the only running back that it's really just 1-for-1. All of these quarterbacks, all of these running backs, the vast majority of their yards are coming from after contact, right? This isn't a receiving type thing where so many of your receiving yards are all coming after contact necessarily. Like this is majority of these running backs, the bulk of it. Like Bijan Robinson has 121 yards after contact, okay, and he's got 167 total yards, right? So we know that that's the way how this is going to be. James Cook 215, 134. Derrick Henry 135 yards after contact, 192 total yards. And so here's the thing though about Ashton Jeanty. So majority of his yards are after contact, but even when we look at yards after contact, I have this is the order that I have it in. Ashton Jeanty is 16th. He's at 2.8 for yards after contact. And then there's a handful of, there's a few people like Kyron Williams at 2.6 and Saquon Barkley 2.13. Like that's not his specialty. Saquon Barkley's his whole thing is being as slippery and as elusive as possibly, right? We all know him leaping over people backwards, like all that type of stuff. That's what he looks to do, and he's just a genius at it, quite frankly. But we could see any of these other guys that are really getting up there in yards after contact: 3.19, 3.172, 3.36, 3.08, 3.5, 4.2, 3.02, 3.5, 4.6 for Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, 4.9. So even when trying to ask him to now, okay, go get those yards after contact, he's not doing as good as you would hope for him to be. And it's just because, you can make the argument that, well, everything is coming after contact. And it's like, yeah, I get that. And you could say, maybe he's getting worn down a little bit, or he hasn't had the advantage of wearing down a defense necessarily. So he hasn't been able to break through, because all he does need to break through for a 30-yard run after contact. Now that obviously he's going to skyrocket, his number is up to around 120 or so. And then also now his yards after contact per attempt is going to increase as well. I think it's a little tricky to look at these numbers too early on in the season, because it really is by definition just too limited of a sample size. And especially the way how sometimes the run game works. It's just, sometimes you do get 25 carries and a lot of them are just not very successful, and then you rip off a 50-yard run, and sometimes it's different. Sometimes you get 15 carries and every single run is 5-6 yards a carry. So I just think when you're talking about running backs, and because we could say, oh, he has 30 attempts, that's a sample size, and it's yeah, it is and it isn't. I just think there's too many breakout runs for running backs that it's just I don't know. The way how Bijan Robinson ran in week 2 is wildly different than how he ran in week 1. And what he was asked to do from his team is wildly different. So it's just, I just think it's too short of a sample size to draw any too strong of conclusions. But the one observation that I did make pretty easily for me was just, yeah, Ashton Jeanty is treating this a little bit like college, where he's just thinking, I can run through people. And, he's not the worst at running through people in the NFL, but he's certainly not the best either. And when you look at all the other numbers of, yards per contact, yards after contact per attempt, he's actually technically on the lower end. Again, you're going to have some of these random outliers when you're looking at some of this data here. But for the most part, he's actually technically at the lower end. And any of the successful running backs who are some of these outliers, like Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, it's because they're not looking really to that's not what makes them special. Their whole thing is being elusive. They're not these power runners in the traditional sense, whereas you're expecting an Ashton Jeanty to run in a different style than, say, a Saquon Barkley. So yeah, I just think some of this just needs to kind of bake a little bit, and that's okay. I mean, RJ Harvey from the Denver Broncos has 11 attempts, 78 yards, and 67 yards after contact, right? And Why aren't they saying RJ Harvey's got to get that ball, keep feeding him the ball, right? He's gotten 7.1 yards per attempt and 6.09 yards after contact per attempt. Like that, if you just take one of those, some of these stats in isolation, you're like, well, this guy's a monster. And the Broncos are doing a terrible job of getting him the ball. And all these yards are coming after contact, and look what he's doing. And it's just like, you're not necessarily hearing that, but we are hearing it from Ashton Jeanty. But yeah, man, he's lower on here. He's 35th in yards per attempt after contact. It's not everything. It's not everything by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something. If I remove any of the other running backs who aren't getting like a lot of attempts, so these are all essentially around 25 or higher. The lowest is 21 here, so 21 or higher, but the bulk of these are 29, 24, 43, 32, 38, 42. So it's just, it's my quick math would be the average is 25 or higher, probably maybe even slightly higher than that. He's at 16th. He's at 16th. So, just I think we have to accept that you can't always by week 2 prove that you are 100% worth where you were drafted. I think sometimes it just takes time. It takes some understanding. Like we always talk about quarterbacks needing to learn and understand the game better for, when you're a first year or second year. It's the same thing for a running back. Like Ashton Jeanty is going to need to learn more so what angles he needs to take when he can, avoid the contact versus just having to put his head down and just fight through it. Like his game will have to evolve from college to the NFL level. It's not just, hey, here's the ball and just run real fast, right? Like it's just not that straightforward. And you would like to see the Las Vegas Raiders use Ashton Jeanty in just in offensive schemes. I'll be really kind of generic here, in offensive schemes that just make you feel like you're just getting him the ball in space and allowing him to move, to use his power, to use his speed. And they just haven't found a way to do that just yet. I wish I had the data on this, but like I wonder how many like screen passes that he's really been kind of set up for. Unfortunately, I don't have access to that. I can look at screen passes for Geno Smith, but I can't necessarily see how many of them went specifically to Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he's only has 5 receptions here to begin with. And so even if they were all screen passes, which I don't believe they were, I don't remember off the top of my head, honestly, they should be working that screen game way more with an Ashton Jeanty, because if you can just get even just a defender even just slightly compromised, slightly blocked, he should be powerful enough to be able to kind of find his way through it. So, we'll see how it continues to evolve. Here's the last thing, though, that I will point out. This is the average depth of target, this column that's highlighted. And again, if you're a lot of these guys are going to get the ball behind the line of scrimmage and right around the line of scrimmage. So it makes sense that you're going to get some like negative 1.6, 1.5. And I'm all for that. You can see that with Saquon Barkley, -2. So like it makes sense. It's how you set up a lot of these, these types of passes. His average depth of target is -4.7. That's 50th. That's like too deep. Like that's I think that's not the best execution of some of these behind the line of scrimmage passes, especially considering we know all of his yards are coming after contact. So he's getting the ball way behind the line of scrimmage and then is immediately met with contact. It's like that's a tough existence. That's a tough existence. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Ashton Jeanty? Do you think the Raiders are misusing him? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.